Cyberpunk 2077 fans, I know you're all hype right now, and I am too, don't get me wrong, but there is something serious that needs to be talked about right now. Over on Reddit, someone shared a post today that asked a very unsettling question in relation to recent Cyberpunk 2077 reviews and some particular fans' reactions. He asked, how do we reach the point where pointing out anything wrong with the game is cause for attempted murder? Yeah, this is pretty serious and it might seem dramatic, but what's coming up is no joke, and you won't believe how far one fan has gone recently to harm a Cyberpunk 2077 reviewer. Before we get into the details though, a little context. Cyberpunk 2077 is finally here, and fans all across the world couldn't be more ready. The hype for this game has been monumental. With a gaming phenomenon like this, the sheer passion and longing for it though has created some fans that are a little too invested. As many of you know by now, Cyberpunk 2077 has recently been released and provided to big gaming news orgs and a select few content creators prior to release so that they could collectively all give their first impressions and reviews on the game after the embargo was lifted. As expected, like normal, most have done an exceptional job at being intentional, insightful, informative, and descriptive enough for us fans to deem whether or not this game is something we would like to buy and play. I doubt anything could sway us at this point though on our decision in getting Cyberpunk 2077 just because the hype and everything we've seen so far that CDPR has shown us. But with that said, emotions are running higher than ever for fans right now, and because the game is so close to being in everyone's hands and at their disposal, some gamers have developed a sense of self-worth tied to how Cyberpunk 2077, how it's being perceived and received by these gaming news orgs in their reviews and content creators with their first impressions. When any type of criticism is expressed towards Cyberpunk 2077, regardless of it being factual or not, these gamers are taking it personally like it's an attack on them directly. Topics like frequent bugs, performance issues, and stability problems are getting so much backlash towards the writers, orgs, and creators talking about them. Most fans, I'd say on average, including myself, not trying to speak for you, but I think we sort of take these reviews with a grain of salt and keep the information we've heard in the back of our minds as we jump into Cyberpunk. So that way we have a more realistic expectation. Again though, other fans are going way too far and taking it personally when anything bad is said about this game or any type of factual information is spread on it that is not positive information. With anything pointing towards the slightest bit of negativity or something that could stunt the game's reputation, they are getting defensive and lashing out. With all of that said, let's talk about the matter at hand. Game Informer writer Liana Rupert put together an article on Cyberpunk 2077 in regards to epilepsy. Being a gamer that suffers from epilepsy, she felt it to be her responsibility, given the platform she has as a credible writer for Game Informer, to spread awareness on just how triggering Cyberpunk 2077 can be. Over on Twitter, she said, "I did have a bad seizure while playing this game, but look, I get it. I'm stubborn. I'll push myself for something if the desire is high enough. Don't be like me. If you have any sort of epilepsy leanings, here is what you need to know about Cyberpunk 2077. Then attached within the tweet is a link to the Game Informer article she posted. Cyberpunk 2077 Epileptic PSA. Now guys, after reading this article, I'm pretty concerned for any gamer out there with any sort of epilepsy that wants to dive into Cyberpunk 2077. I'll allow you to read it yourself and not cite every word, but apparently Cyberpunk is alarmingly more triggering than the average game, and it doesn't even have a warning when you start playing. So what's unsettling about this article, aside from its contents, is the reception of it, how several people responded to it. Instead of being supportive like you might think of this PSA, a shocking amount of insensitive people were slandering it, saying things like, "Don't play then," or "Sounds like a personal problem," and "Just because you have a disorder doesn't mean CDPR should have to change anything in the game." As if Liana, being epileptic and putting herself through a playthrough in Cyberpunk 2077 that resulted in a bad seizure wasn't enough, it also resulted in her article bringing awareness to epileptic issues in this game being criticized and slandered. It doesn't end there either. What happened next is insane to me, and it's even worse. Following the article tweet, Liana responded to her own tweet continuing the thread with a terrible warning saying, "Warning, I've been sent hundreds of videos disguised as support that are deliberate flashing to induce photosensitive triggers. If you're sharing this saying you're epileptic and receive a video, don't press play. I'm back to being on my ass. Be better, please." Guys, I can't believe some people have gone this far over Cyberpunk criticism to take it to this level. I mean, like, what do you think of this? Like, for real, this is crazy to me that someone is trying to be, upfront with CDPR, like contact the devs, just genuinely trying to reach out and bring awareness to gamers with epilepsy, and she gets attacked. I mean, she even works for Game Informer. That's one of the most known gaming article publishers out there. One person responded to the thread saying, how about instead of gamers getting all defensive, saying people prone to epileptic fits shouldn't play it, then they instead defend the players and said game devs shouldn't put unskippable epileptic fit triggers in their games. Another person said, I really hope the writer received hazard pay for this. This is vital reportage, but they were very much in harm's way doing it, and their compensation should reflect that. Thank you for calling attention to this, and I'm so sorry for the horrible reactions that you've received. It's nice to see that while a lot of overly invested Cyberpunk fans set out to slander this article and do physical harm to Liana for writing it, an outpour of support followed, and people came together to express concern and sympathy for her alongside epileptic gamers. While she was thankful, Liana made sure to guide the focus off her and back towards the initial matter at hand. She said, I appreciate the kind words, I'm having a hard time keeping up with all of it, but I'm also seeing this warp into something that is weird and making this not about epileptic safety, and I'm not comfortable with that. Please stop sharing the latter, just focus on the article. I respect that. That's awesome. Man, things are crazy out there right now. I didn't expect to see this kind of news surfacing. Now, really quick, the only reason why I know about this is because of the initial Reddit post I referenced early on in the beginning of the video. And really quick, in closing, I want to show you guys the full post that he shared, the walk-in dude, all of his words, because they do really encompass the situation and how I feel, and also just kind of give a good recap. Here it is. The reviewer who pointed out that Cyberpunk has a high likelihood of causing seizures in epileptics has been sent many GIFs that would also trigger seizures in her. How did we get to the point that so many gamers have their entire sense of self-worth tied up in Cyberpunk being absolutely flawless, so that any criticism of the game, no matter how valid, is a grievous personal insult that needs to be avenged? We really are only about one step away from a game reviewer being shot and killed by a gamer who didn't like their review. What can be done about this? And while that seems dramatic, guys, we just talked about someone getting images disguised as support that had GIFs containing flashing lights that would trigger a seizure. So that's not too far-fetched, really, in all reality. I struggle to grasp how people can actually succumb to this type of behavior, but it still happens a lot. Let me know down in the comments below how you feel about it and what you think of things that were said, and ultimately what this person did to handle it. I personally think she handled it like a champ, and I don't know how she could have handled it any better, so props to her for that. Being able to push the focus off of herself and back onto the main issue at hand, being the alarming amount of epileptic triggers in Cyberpunk and lack of a warning for gamers with the disorder. Anyway, everyone, that wraps things up for today's video. If you would like to check up on Liana and show support, I will link her Twitter in the description down below, as well as the Game Informer article that she wrote. Thank you for watching, and big ups for tuning in, everyone. I thought this topic deserved more attention, as it is a big deal for a lot of gamers. For more news and entertainment, tips and tricks, and everything Cyberpunk 2077, hit subscribe right now so you aren't missing out, and turn those notifications on so you catch everything as it gets released. I've got a lot of awesome content planned for you guys, and I know you'll love it. And as always, I hope to see you all in the next one. Later.